discussion on advertisers' perspective, a view of the Eastern market. AdGlee's endeavor is to put the spotlight on a market that is yet to be a part of mainstream marketing strategies. For the ease of better understanding, the East market will be addressing the Assam, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, and West Bengal market. Without doubt, these markets offer immense scope for growth and investment by brands and marketers. In our special discussion today, we'll be exploring the potential of these markets. These are the markets where traditional formats are dominating, and at the same time, they are the cusp of foraying into the digital revolution that's sweeping the country. I would like to share a brief outlook on advertising in the East market. This data was shared by TAM Media Research. In January-April period, TV ad volumes grew by 57% and print ad volumes grew by 25%. More than 14,000 brands advertised during this period across media, with 1,200 new brands on TV and 7,430 new brands on print compared to the same period last year. On television, East market contributed around 18% of ad volumes. In print medium, East market had 15% share of ad space, among which 26% share of advertising was accounted by West Bengal market alone in Jan-April 2021. FMCG, personal care, and personal hygiene are the top advertisers on TV, while auto, healthcare, education, and retail dominated on print medium. News bulletins are among the top program genre with 23.2% share, followed closely by feature films at 22.8%. On TV, GEC, news, and movies were the top three genres and accounted for 89% of the advertising pie. Today's webinar is presented in association with News Nation. I am your host, Bijoya Ghosh, and I have with me media and marketing experts, Mr. Jay Lala, CEO Zenith India, Monas Todiwala, CEO PhD India, Paulomi Roy, CMO RSH Global. Give me a minute, please. Suparna Mukadam, Head of Marketing and Brand Custodian, Keventer Agro. Sushant Panda, Team Lead, Marketing and Communication Strategy, Digital Initiatives and International Business Expansion, McEnroe Consumer Products. Welcome, panelists. I start the discussion with our today's question on what are the marketers and agencies doing to understand the consumer behavior in the East market. I open it to all of you. My sub-question to this is, how has the market evolved in the last decade? Monas, would you like to go first for this?
Sure, Bijoya. Hi. Hi, everybody. So Bijoya, that's an interesting question, actually. I think one of the key things that we've seen in the last decade is a couple of, how do I put it, peculiarities that we've seen actually picked up in West Bengal more than any other market. One is that we feel that the market is exceedingly open to innovations. And when I say that, obviously, I mean that from media context per se, much more than other regional markets. Second, what we see is that, of course, there is dependence on TV, like you said, but in the last couple of years, there has also been an increasing dependence on digital. And of course, it's been accelerated in the last 2 years, for sure, since the time we've been in this pandemic phase. The other interesting peculiarity that one sees for the market, especially East, is that there is a lot of local consumption of content. So when I say that, I mean, we are a country that's divided by regions, but especially in the West, West Bengal especially, while you see a lot of Hindi content, you also see a lot of new format adaptations of local content. And I think that's a big wow, because that's something erstwhile one would see more relegated to the South rather than the East. And that's one big change actually that we've seen in the last 5 to 6 years in the market. So these are just some of the top line observations.
Jay, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so just basically adding on to what Monaz is saying. So in my mind, actually, East is broken up into two parts. There is one is West Bengal, which has been part of all media plans for various brands across the country, and then is the second part, which I'm talking about is markets like Assam, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, which over the last few years we are seeing marketers focusing a lot on those. So to me, West Bengal is a evolved media market because you have various TV channels and various regional TV channels which cater to that. You have the mass networks, obviously catering to the Hindi speaking audiences there. Print is very popular,
Absolutely.
and obviously digital is gaining traction, and we are also seeing customized digital solutions for West Bengal. But when you look at the interesting part to me is actually Assam, Bihar, and all, which is now suddenly forming a part of the media plans. Earlier, it was I would say more or less ignored. It was just covered by the national spill. But now there are specific inputs going into these markets, and the growth is sort of coming in there. So East, I wouldn't just say East is very universal. There is West Bengal, and then there are other markets. West Bengal definitely leads from an advertising perspective. The other markets are gaining, and you have like a lot of brands which have made big inputs into West Bengal. So like likes of Horlicks, Thumbs Up, Complan. So there are like really large brands who depend a lot on that market for their business. Uh, and we are seeing the emergence of Assam and Bihar in the recent past. So that's how I would like to put it. They're not at the same pace. West Bengal is definitely much more evolved.
Follow me? From a brand's perspective, what is your thought?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So very interestingly, I'll just add on from the last point that Manaz said about the content specification. If you would recently observe, as she said, that even in the national media channels of GEC are actually now replicating a lot of Bengal content in the Hindi versions and has seen a lot of success. So I completely agree to all the points. And the last point, that example just came to my mind when she was saying in the last couple of decades, we have often seen a lot of Hindi content of the national GECs being replicated in Bengal. But now I've seen in the last couple of years, a lot of Bengali content is being actually translated into Hindi, and they're garnering a lot of things. Another interesting point from what Jay said is the fact that the other part of East and brands have started investing. And the very interesting observation from a brand perspective is that how the industries are interconnected. You know why to a large extent we have started doing this is because from the FMCG point of view, and I think a lot of other industry will also agree to it, thanks to e-commerce, which has now become a third channel of sales, they have increased the penetration of our products to a much deeper level, right? So therefore, right now, for companies who do not have very good sales and distribution strength into the because it is quite expensive affair to actually reach out to a small kasbah or a small town when you go by the general trade versions of it. So to a large extent, you will see the sales and distribution penetration gets stuck at a certain level. Thanks to e-commerce, that has started penetrating a lot. And looking at that, a lot of brands have also started investing in the smaller markets, saying that because the products are getting available to the consumers there also. So it's an interesting thing that how each industry is influencing the other industry, and therefore even advertising in the smaller pockets are also increasing. So couldn't agree more to whatever they said as of now. And yeah.
Parna? Parna, anything?
Yeah. So to add on to what my previous, all the previous speakers, I want to add on something a little different. See, East has always very price conscious market. And one of the things that we have seen from our various researchers, dipsticks that we have done, or even from our sales force or feedback that has been coming, is that during the last decade, we found that the entire portion size of all the products that has been going out has been actually reduced. East being very price conscious, products that are actually doing very well is actually a one note product. So if it's a 20 rupees or a 10 rupees, those are the ones that are really flying off the shelf very, very quickly. The other thing that picking up from what Polomi and Jay or what Manas has already also said is that, we launched, e-commerce, of course, is doing very well, but distribution in the smaller towns. I mean, going back to the smallest of place, including not just your West Bengal or Bihar or Jharkhand. If you look at the Northeast market, is actually absolutely untapped. So when we looked at our brand, we actually started from the Northeast and entered into Calcutta from there. I mean, we've seen a lot of success in our milk brand, which is under Keventer. Tetra Pak actually replaced the entire powder milk market in the Northeast. And we are now the second largest player against a Goliath like Amul today. So we've realized that because East is always so starved of brands or people who, because it's always been the last of the pecking order, it's actually worked to our advantage in many cases. So we've made sure that, we've seen that when we went to the Northeast and distributed in the smallest of places, being the first in and being a large brand, there's been a lot of trust and faith that got impressed on us. And given the fact that, that East is, has always been a price conscious market. So portion sizes, one single note, how you're talking to the consumer, do you have a empathy, a connect in the local language? All this actually really worked for us. And I'm sure
how would you respond about your brand?
Sorry?
No.
So I think there are some interesting points, and I think given that we are in the lifestyles, we operate in the lifestyle space, it's a slightly different sort of perspective that we have. I think what I would agree with with the last speaker. The lifestyle upgradation index has been the highest in the Northeast. Okay, and therefore, and it is actually then traveled down. So when you travel down from the farthest that you can be, because that has influence from a lot of other countries, etc., and all of that. So when you see the perhaps one of the highest lifestyle desirability is in the Northeast, and then it travels down from there. I think one of the other interesting things is that the bottom rung of the pyramid, as far as distribution is concerned, has gone up, which means there was a larger chunk of people who've come into consumption classes. On the other hand, a new format of retail seems to have slightly bypassed the East, which is modern retail. And then straight away jumped into e-commerce, and that's where the sort of challenge is. And it also tells you the kind of market that it is. Perhaps it is more distributed. It is not. I mean, the reason why modern retail doesn't work in the East in a big way is because you don't get the right amount of people walking in. But so it's not concentrated, but it is distributed. So which is why it is, as I told yesterday, in East is the largest region for Flipkart. Very, very, it might be surprising, but that is by 3 to 4 percentage points. Because again, as I said, there obviously have been an upgradation as far as desires are concerned, which is, I mean, today we are talking of uniform access, and it's not uniform access not only at a national level, but at a global level. So therefore, and the language, not to mention, in the Northeast is primarily English. So therefore, you can expect a higher upgradation of lifestyle in Northeast. And as and when content starts developing, you will see that happening. And there was an interesting point that we sort of talked about, which is about Bengali content being made in Hindi. But that's actually is part of a larger subset where content travels borders and geographies. You have Brazilian content today being available in Tamil. So therefore, and content is a great equalizer in my mind, because I mean, look at K-pop. Okay, so I mean, the followers of K-pop in Northeast is perhaps extremely high. So therefore, I would say that the distribution is not caught up to people's changes, people's desires, but newer companies are doing more exciting things, and that's what is interesting for us. So yeah, so therefore you don't mind trying, unless of course you, I mean, the one category that has not changed its character has been actually washing powder. I think West Bengal is the only market in the world which still uses sunlight. So so that's the one category which hasn't changed, but otherwise there is a far more greater degree of homogenization, and I think views are the same, the language of expression differs today. I mean, did you ever imagine a Tamilian girl being loved by a Hindi speaking audience? So it doesn't really matter. Or sorry, it's a Telugu girl actually. She's a Telugu girl. Okay, a Telugu girl who's a Tamilian star is loved by the entire Hindi speaking audience as of today. So and that's for what I call, if there were and my point of view is that there will be a far greater homogenization. There will be a little bit of cultural identity that we will hold on to, and the pandemic has only accelerated homogenization. So therefore, I think, is it a sense of loss or is it a greater sense of integration? I don't know. But I think the whole point of East is pichada in terms of, and that, or any region for that matter, why East? I think will start getting start getting sort of mitigated at least. And that's been a huge change. Yeah, that's my point.
So my next question is for Paulomi. Paulomi, what's your approach to customer outreach? Is it distinct from other markets? What you follow in the Eastern Belt? Do you follow the similar pattern in other markets as well?
Well, in terms of distribution, if you look at it, of course, it is a homogeneous effort everywhere. But as marketing is concerned, we ensure that we have a very distinct approach towards various regions, not only West Bengal. To be very honest, this call was taken by us a couple of years back itself, and it was a learning not from here. If you know the markets, China as a country operates like this. It's a huge country. And when they move from one region to the other, they always have a different way of reaching out and communicating with their consumers. Earlier, if you see a couple of years back, we were always present in the West Bengal market. But in the last 2 to 3 years, when we have actually started, having a separate share of investment in terms of West Bengal for marketing and communication. Uh, till about my growing up years and when I was working in the initial years also, I have always seen a TVC that was being made and then dubbed in various languages according to the preference. But 2 years back, it is 2020, when the pandemic hit, I think that was the year when actually Joy as a brand, we said, we are going to have special focus on West Bengal market in terms of investment, in terms of marketing efforts. And that very year itself, we took a decision that we're not going to go by a scenario where I do a Hindi, whatever I do in a national forum, I just replicate in terms of dubbing the TVC and running the ads, and that's about it. The reason being that we always felt that India has many India in one India. Secondly, as typically Eastern market, which is again dominated by the Bengal culture, I'm talking of West Bengal as of now, and the southern region, these are the places, and I'm sure Jay would also agree to this because these discussions are often happening while we are doing our planning and all, that these regions are dominated by these culture and language plays a major role over there. Even though, as we all know, that a national media plan always has a spill of around 40% in West Bengal, but there is a still huge chunk of audience who still consume. And if you have to reach out to them, you have to understand their culture. You'll have to, and it's not only about the Durga Puja. As all of us know that Durga Puja is a very cluttered time. Any festivity is a cluttered time for any brand, but there are other nuances. There's the way, the language that you need to understand. And if you as a brand make an effort and you want to connect and you want to go deep root into that market, it's important that you start speaking, thinking in that language. So from day one, when we wanted to focus, we were very clear that apart from whatever we do in national media, yes, there will be a coherence. Yes, there will be a similarity. The brand is not going to speak a completely different language over here and a completely different language. The brand doesn't loses its philosophy. It stays intact. But every time we go into, when we started East, we ensured that we have a complete strategy, which is built on the back of understanding the consumers in West Bengal and talking the language, thinking they are. So the choice of media, the choice of language in our TVC, the way we were reaching out, the engagement process, all of it was done, keeping understanding the consumers of this part of the country in mind. So yes.
So during pandemic, was there a change in your strategy?
For the first part of the pandemic, we had launched a couple of campaigns, and yes, we came up with a hygiene range at that point of time because that was the need of the hour. That precisely came for the fact that as a brand and as a company, we had always ensured that if my consumer needs, so for example, if my Joy consumer needs a sanitizer, I would rather focus and give him that. It's not that I'm going to make a huge market share in sanitizer, but because I belong to my consumers, and if they need it, we will do. The hygiene range was launched there. And then we did take up some special drives. For example, one of the very close campaign that had happened at that point of time, we did it from the heart because if you all know that Asia's largest red light area is in Kolkata. And there's a lot of transgender. So we did this activity of actually, going out to around 1 lakh transgenders and sex workers in Kolkata and around Kolkata, and giving them about 2 months, 3 months supply of the sanitization product. We made a small campaign around it. We did use influencers of Bengal at that point of time to even promote that particular range, but it was again the promotions that we took at that point of time did not talk about buy my brand, use a Joy sanitizer. It was more of that there's a need of the hour, we have it guys, more of an awareness campaign, of course, and then the product was introduced while we were communicating. So these are the kind of efforts that we were doing at that point of time. And again, it was not only activity of going and giving it out, we also backed it up with messaging, which was very emotionally written through, and spoken about by celebs, and we started passing them on through digital and television, keeping the sentiments of all our consumers in mind at that point of time. So yeah, that is one of the campaigns which we had planned immediately, looking at the sentiments that was lumbering around before we could just get into our regular face wash campaigns and lotion campaigns and all of that.
Suparna, you also said something about a price sensitive market. So along with the outreach bit, was there something specific that you did for the price sensitive consumers here?
So our products are all, priced within, it's priced from 10, 15, 20, 25. We actually during the pandemic we actually did different kind of marketing activities. What we realized that because we're in the food company and we're a necessity, we're an essential food company. Your morning breakfast of banana, milk, and all will not start if we are not doing our job. So what we started doing was that during the pandemic, everybody became very aware of what is going inside the product. Nutritional needs, immunity. These were conversations. These were pointers that you were constantly hearing. We also realize that it's important, that you convey to the consumers on what is going inside. So how does the plant operate? Where is the milk being kept? Is it hygienic? Is it going out in the right places? And we did that, and we actually brought this out to the consumers in different form. We did it through social bloggers. We got nutrition panelists involved. We got a lot of social media influencers who actually spoke, who actually saw and disintegrated a product, if I might say that, and spoke to the consumers, directly on it. We got fitness experts because we are very large in the Northeast. To us, Bengal is about metro, and Kevin is a very large brand in the Northeast. So, we got, singing idols. We spoke to them in their own language. We got, beauty experts who also said that, how does she make her tea with the right kind of milk? Footballers. We did a series of fun things out there on the digital media, and on ground, what we did is that my boss always believes that jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai. Is as simple as that. So we said that, one of the things we're going to do is to beef up our distribution. So when we beefed up our distribution, we started this entire concept of portion sizes. Our milkshake, for example, is not a 200, 250 ml. It's actually a 150. Lassi and milkshakes are at a 150 ml. It's a one sip. It's 15 rupees. It's 20 rupees. So what happens is when you pick up the product, it's actually in a one sip. And on the pack, we started talking not of the nutritional. See, FSSI law always will tell us to put it nutritional guidelines. But what is it that decodes to the consumer in their own language is what we did. So we separated, because we are on Tetra Pak, we actually started sending out localized messages which make sense to the seven sisters separately, to Orissa separately, to Bihar separately, to Bhutan, where we are also very big, to Bhutan separately, and to Bengal separately. So, it kind of created, a lot of corporate brands earlier before the pandemic actually lost faith in what the way food was being dealt with the consumers. Am I having the right thing? Am I buying it for the right price? So the pandemic, during the pandemic, with all these efforts that we did, actually brought back a large amount of trust and faith. Now, when you buy, and because we have a bouquet of products, what worked for us, Bijoya, was that when you buy one Kevinter, you buy 6. It's because, when you go to recognize, which is one of the reasons, when you recognize a brand, when you recognize and you have faith, or for example, if you've tasted something which is clicked with, you would give preference to the one that you would always know. That's human nature, right? So yeah, so that's what we did. That's what we did during the last year. We beefed up our distribution. We were present everywhere. We are omnipresent. We worked very largely on the digital space. And the third thing we did was we brought things directly home. We did a lot of we in fact we are the only ones. I don't know if you've ever seen it, if you're in Bengal, a banana cart. You've seen an ice cream cart? So what we did last year was that ice creams are being sold in carts. Our logic was, why does bananas have to be? We have branded bananas under Kevinter. So why does banana has to be in the wet market? So we took the banana cart like an ice cream, and we have about 200 odd carts in Calcutta, which go around on the cycle, neighborhood to neighborhood, giving the bananas out from one period part of they stop in front of Joggers Park, they stop in front of various residential complex. So yeah, D2C actually means a little different for us. So it was a fun project for us. We drove it digitally, and we said, locate the cart and go out and get your bananas. So these are things that experiments that has really helped us. So yeah, so far so good.
Sushant, what did your brand do? Can't hear you, Sushant.
So unfortunately, we operate in categories that get consumed out of home, and therefore the last what do you call? The whole pandemic has not been very kind to us, because if you're not stepping out of the house, I don't think anybody will bother putting on any thing to smell good. Okay. Yeah. So therefore, the base products, which are the soap and talcum, have actually done better. But then that's not what drives the sort of business. The business is driven by perfumes and deos. Men in any case don't do anything when they're at home, right? So therefore you can imagine what would happen to the whole idea of grooming. And surprisingly, as I said, we are perhaps one of the few countries globally where women constitute only 1/4 of the total market. In most markets it's 50-50. So there you go. So we are unfortunately quite badly hit. But we feel that it will be a hockey stick climb back. Because right now, all you can see is traffic jams. I think people are fed up of staying inside. The whole notion of it's gone down and vaccination, I don't know, peaking up. So, but we expect a hockey stick because really there was hardly anything that we could do. So therefore, so there was contraction in any form of communication. And by the way, the reason why you find a 57% growth when you compare April to March is because you had 45 days of lockdown last year.
Got it.
So March 25th to April 30th was lockdown. So that when budgets went zero. Whereas here, April elections were still on, lockdowns were being delayed. So therefore, you find a 47 or a 50% growth, which is very misleading.
Last year.
Yeah. Last year, 40. I mean, people started pulling out money from March 12th, 15th.
Yes.
Right. So that's the reason for that fantastic growth of 45%.
Right. My next question is for Jay and Manaz both. So how, according to you, has the East market fared, Jay?
It's, if it's relative to the pandemic, so obviously the first wave was quite challenging. A lot of unpreparedness and trying to act with this entire new normal, as we call it. So first wave was I think quite chaotic because as Sushant just now said that the first month it went absolutely dead. Everybody just withdrew and. Even if things were selling for them, the distribution wasn't great. So brands like some of the brands like Parle G and Maggie and all of those were off the shelf, but they couldn't really go back and create the distribution so that the brands would be there. So it was challenging. The second wave, I think there has been a lot of preparedness. So because it's there at the back of our mind. So even while we are talking right now, at the back of our mind, there might be something like a third wave. So there has been a lot of preparedness, and so while the second wave from a pandemic for India was very disaster, but from a business standpoint, from a brand standpoint, I think it was very well managed because the agency, the client, all of us, I think were much better prepared. So we had a bunch of creatives ready. We had a media plans, everything going. The client had the distribution going. So all that probably helped us. From a media standpoint, obviously we saw a huge growth in digital. Digital has seen. I think it got like what we used to envisage, let's say 2 years hence, 3 years hence, happened very fast because of people being at home and trying to try out new content and all that. So digital has seen while what we were discussing from the addicts point of view, 2020 was like a degrowth across mediums, but not for digital. Digital continued to hold its stance, and 21 it has further got accelerated. E-com has been another area which has seen a lot of traction. So what has happened during the pandemic is that digital and e-com saw an acceleration actually. So it propelled them at least 2 years ahead. And that's been the change which we are seeing now, which is continued because it's a habit change and it'll continue. So that continues to sort of grow.
Manaz, do you agree with what Jay is saying, or you've seen a different kind of approach from your side?
No, I totally agree with what Jay is saying. I think the only thing I'd like to add more to what Jay is saying is that we've also seen a sharp increase in the kind of engagement that clients want to do in East as a market. And my view, unfortunately, is restricted to West Bengal, because that's one of the largest markets that we sort of deal with. But there is a sharp increase in the kind of engagement. And then by that, I mean content influencer is also something that we've seen a sharp increase per se from an agency standpoint, over and above everything that Jai mentioned.
From the brand's perspective, Suparna, what is your view? How has the East market fared
on
according to
social
you?
media?
Yeah.
Sorry?
I said,
On digital
according to
media?
you, how has the Eastern market fared during pandemic?
Okay. How has the brands fared in the East?
East, yes.
Okay.
You can give your example. I mean, how have you done during pandemic?
Our brands have fared fairly well.
Yours is an
Our brands
essential
are fed.
category. I can't do without milk.
So our brands are fed, which is very unlike Shashank's. I
Yeah.
fully understand his situations.
Right.
We fed well, and we've taking on what Manaz and Jai said. We've actually kick-started. We waited on our e-commerce for many years. It was like a hibernating thing, which everybody's baby. It was a great talking point in PowerPoint presentations, but it actually kick-started last year. And we, nobody, we now do a lot of performance marketing. We geo-target, we do a lot of targeted communication and market towards performance marketing, which drives it back to our app and on our e-commerce, which is now the new area that, is an area we've got into. We are analyzing it. It's helped us to be a little bit more adaptive and agile. As a brand, it's very important to be agile. We realized that, our age-old notion of thinking that, if I take, for example, a Bengali GC or the news and I'm done with and dusted, those are things that we are reworking in our marketing, our spendabilities, because we've realized that Bengali people, Northeast people, everybody has nuances. And if you don't study the nuances in each of the markets, we won't be able to connect or sell. Sure, at a mass media, we are doing what is correct, whatever, whether it is a television, whether it is, but today, I'm actually looking at Hoichoi, Ghana.com. Can I, for example, tie up with Radio Mirchi or a Ghana and look at a radio hour for my milk linesman, for example? Now that's unheard of, right? Those are things that we are now getting into, which is slightly more defined towards, because consumer is one end of the story for us. For us, trade is also a very large part of the story. To us, they are also consumers, right, to a certain extent. So we've been doing a lot. E-commerce is now become very big, and it's a new game which we are discovering every day. So yeah, so that's what we are doing right now, and I hope that's what the good thing goes.
Shashank, what did you guys do? I understand pandemic kind of took the sail out of the wind. So, but what did you?
Both SAIL and SALE, So, they were, the only thing that we sort of did is recoup and, plan, be ready for whenever the situation lives. B, I think, this time also the e-commerce, while it did grow up, but there were logistical challenges for a lot of the what do you call fulfillment companies. So Amazon was completely out in Kolkata and things like that. So therefore the numbers suffered there. I think brands sort of did their own e-commerce and digital outreach, and that's where it gained. But in our case, as I said, there was nothing that we could do to influence sales. There is you can dream of it, but nothing. So therefore, we just sort of did a little bit of maintenance activity. However, I think we are better prepared for, let's say, August. We're definitely better prepared for August.
Olami?
Okay, so right at the beginning of the first pandemic, I think one realization that we had is that it was not about the demand and supply. The problem was with our supply chain, because if you remember, interstate was locked at that point of time. So that was the first business challenge that we had. So more not a marketing or a sales challenge, that was a typical business challenge where I think most of us from different industry, what we faced is the supply chain, because borders were closed, trucks were not available. So even though there were certain product of ours which were in demand. Now in the personal care category, there were a couple of things that we were also noticing. So in the higher end of the category, where you have slightly the indulgence product, and if you are a company which is into a slightly indulgent product and your target audience is on the top of the pyramid, they were not doing that bad actually, because people were self-indulging themselves when they were at home. Whereas a company like ours, which is a mass brand, we do have certain categories like moisturization and all, which is a far more, I wouldn't say need-based, but bottom down the line, you use it on a regular basis. And even though there were demand for it, what happened is the supply chain was so abruptly disturbed that taking my product to my consumer was the biggest challenge. That was the first challenge that we faced. So which needed, which again was a lot dependent upon when the lockdowns were opening. The moment that opened, I think the supply chain departments of, at least in my company, played a huge and a magnificent role of actually channelizing all the stocks and ensuring that it reaches its there. And that's when we were instructed that you start up with your endeavors with the maintenance campaign, the hygiene range campaign, and start reaching out to your consumers. And of course the sales force also, with limited people, how they were operating, we did a lot of distribution led programs. We tried engaging with our distributors and all of that. Now, as Jay had mentioned, the second wave, even though it was deadlier and a lot of us have lost, near and dear ones, and the pandemic was much closer to us. But from an advertiser's point of view, we were better prepared because there was no disruption in the supply chain. It is still, the goods were able to go to the consumer. And but one business challenge that I was discussing with my management, and I get to know also when we were talking, we were talking to them, is everybody is now concerned, at least in our industry, to manage the the top line and the bottom line, because in the first pandemic, the ingredients or the raw materials had hit a all-time low, and then nobody could envisage what the situation will be. So people were very conservative, that okay, the demands are going to go down very badly, consumers are not going to consume, and we are going to have a lull and all. Then suddenly we saw the demand being intact. So there was again this surge of suddenly producing all the raw material. Come on, give me also, give me. So that demand of raw materials increased to a very, and the prices shot up. So I think the P&L maintenance at our level, whether in terms of the product, the marketing, and then the ultimate MRP, maintaining that balance and creating at the end of the day, we are doing business. So that was the biggest challenge while we were doing the marketing endeavors to ensure that, the consumers are not left in a lull, that where did the brand disappear? So there was this maintenance campaign, there was a sustenance campaign, digital e-commerce, as Suparna also mentioned, yes. I think a lot of brands who were up there doing it got that acceleration, saying, okay, these marketplaces are helping us right now. Because though that was also very difficult in the first phase, because even the warehouses and all of us who were dependent on marketplaces like the Amazons and the Flipkarts of the world, even they faced a similar problem. But in the second wave, I think these people were still much, so all brands went a little aggressive that way. A lot of launches were done, especially targeted towards the e-commerce. At least from my, we started doing a lot of launches in the e-commerce space, and some of which will also see the light in the general trade as well. And influencer marketing, yes, I think the biggest fact of the matter is I think all of us have received a special guidelines from SKI as to how the influencer marketing needs to be controlled, which means it has seen the big light of the day. Because earlier we were all continuously saying that ye kya ho raha hai? Like one influencer influencing 10 brand, does it make a difference in anybody's life? And we were waiting. So now we know that the bubble has become big. No wonder SKI has come up with the guidelines as well. So great. So that again is an indication of the fact that a lot of influencer marketing has been used at that point of time. Screens, we all know that India being a single TV household to a large extent, the next big screen on everybody's hand were their phones. So yes, consumption was happening there and reaching out to the consumers in that space was like the need of VR and the apparent, and therefore as Jay mentioned, that what the kind of acceleration we would have, the growth that we would have envisaged in like the 3-4 years has definitely ramped up for sure. So there was abruptness, and there we like brands like even to a large extent brands who were like slightly conservative and they were waiting to cope up with this whole e-commerce and this digital revolution had to ramp up the fact that okay, this is the need of the hour and let's go by it. So there was a Mahem, but I think there is there also had been a method to the madness. We are all being responsive because nobody knew. Right, like everybody would agree that being agile was very important. Like none of us could predict because it is unpredictable. The situations were unpredictable. Nobody could predict. All we could do is hear, observe, act fast, go with it. So that's all we were doing at that point of time. And till date, also, as Jay mentioned, that third wave, something is looming in our head till date. Like even while you plan for your winter captives and the festive, which is the most important part for business and for media houses and agencies, which is like the most important season, we all are geared up for it, and everything, touch wood, this should not happen again. It's lumbering in our mind, and everybody is having a plan B. And what if again it hits? Then how do we cross the sea? So yeah, we are all well prepared, but these are some of the things we faced, and this is how we coped up.
My next question is for Jay and Manas. What are the preferred media channels in this market? In terms of spends, what do advertisers favor? What kind of platforms? Is it the GECs they prefer? Is it the digital platforms they prefer? Is it the influencer marketing? You touched upon it, Manas, I know. Jay, do you also similar? I mean, they've shared some bit of the work that they have done. Do you see similar kind of trends, or do you kind of differ in your approach?
So it varies from category to category, brand to brand. So like if I were to take examples of some of the FMCG, TV definitely plays a very important role. Because while all these markets are different at a language and at a culture level, but they all do watch Hindi, and that's where the large networks like Star, Sony, Z also cater to these markets. So what happens is that anyways you're advertising on the mass channels, then it makes sense to beef it up to the regional TV channels. So that sort of becomes the first port of call for FMCG brands. Obviously, all this is layered with digital. Like what we spoke about earlier, Paulomi spoke and Mona spoke, that digital continues to be something which is getting accelerated. If you look at auto categories, print plays a very important role because dealers have a very important say in how business happens. So suddenly, when you look at a category like say Hero or something like that, it's print which sort of dominates. So it starts. The planning is probably bottoms up. You start catering to the entire trade and everybody, and that's where print starts playing an important role. So
Due to pandemic, don't you think print took a beating? So in that case, where did you kind of park that entire money that's spent?
See, when the pandemic happened, and especially I think for the auto category, the dealers were also shut. So it was like absolutely zero advertising. There was a little bit of TV happening, some amount of digital happening. So it was coinciding with shops opening and therefore print also happening. I think one of the biggest things while print saw a huge decline in terms of readership and therefore in terms of the business, but what all of us, I think, realize for print is that it's a medium of trust. Lot of fake news goes all around on digital. And then when you want to really know if this news is true or not, you tend to go on to print as a medium. And print as in you could even go to the digital sites and check for that. And I think that got established very, very strongly. That print is, and it was always there. Like we always knew that print is something which sort of enables that very well. But I think the pandemic sort of conveyed that in a very different way. So yes, when the pandemic was on its full blown, when things were shut, obviously advertising for those categories was shut. When it opened up, we've got back to print again because it conveys that wonderfully.
Also, last 4 months, Manaz, I'll ask you the same question. Last 4 or 5 months, there's lots of action in the news channel space in the East market. So, have you seen an increase in spends in the news space as well from your set of brands?
So, news is a very delicate topic right now. So, for various reasons
Just
and all
tell me
that.
a category wise in terms of, because there are quite a few channels that have launched in the East of late. Yeah, and
So,
others
see,
have kind of become more, they've refocused their purpose, their action in that market.
see, basically, it's all driven due to elections. So, because of the elections in West Bengal, news in any market, we see that there's a huge sort of jump. So, obviously, that happened, and brands would obviously want to capitalize that because viewership goes up, and it's concurrent. But because of the peculiar situation we obviously have not been able to measure that. But just going by experience, yes, news generally tends to do very well during elections, and obviously there were launch of a lot of channels also to capitalize on that, especially in the news segment. So advertising sort of follows that. That's something which we've sort of followed throughout.
Manaz?
So Vijaya, actually, I echo what Jay is saying, but there's something interesting what Shuparna said, and that's what we're sort of, seeing with most of our brands. I think there has been a steady shift in the way spends are getting divided across mediums. And when I say that, I mean both for FMCGs as well as non-FMCG categories. And I think there's actually a grain of truth in terms of the fact that I think marketers have actually experimented more with mediums that erstwhile they would not have experimented for this market. So from our experience, I think what we're seeing is almost a 50-50 split between digital and TV across brands. And which, according to me, for a market like East, it's a fairly steep shift in that sense. Yes, as Jay said, on auto brands, there is some resurgence on print. We're also seeing slowly some resurgence in outdoor. I know that outdoor pretty much was wiped out during the pandemic, but we are seeing, because like Jay said, for the dealers, and especially in the auto category where we know that there are launches that are getting planned and the category is heating up, we believe that there will also be a resurgence in outdoor in the market to some extent.
How do you see the radio category in the East market?
So actually, radio is fairly strong, Vijaya. I don't think that, marketers have ever sort of ignored the use of radio, and radio is becoming more and more integrated with the other experiential activities that marketers are doing in the market. But I do see a shift even from radio to some of the more, how do I put it, audio apps, so to speak, where and there is definitely some increase there as well. I won't say that there is a major drop in radio, but yes, dollars are eroding to to digital being the more preferred medium. It also could be that marketers are looking at expanding audiences. They're no longer going to the audiences that they used to in terms of the target audience. Everybody's trying to either broaden or trying to find out new markets. And hence, digital is sort of becoming an important play, so to speak, in that market. More driven from, I think, business necessities, than anything else.
Sushant, what's been the media mix like? I mean, I know there wasn't much of an advertising, but what's been the media mix like that you followed? I mean, give me a sense before the pandemic situation. Pandemic, of course, was bad for everyone. So, but before that, what was the media mix like?
So, pandemic was obviously 100% of whatever that you spend was digital.
Yeah.
Right. all other mediums sort of got switched off. Um, but yes, we our contribution of the TV today continues to remain the single most economic way of reaching people in this country still. The cost of GRP vis-a-vis other countries is still much lower. Okay, the cost of reach. Uh, and on the other hand, cost of guaranteed reach on digital is far more higher,
Yeah.
right? So, but at the same time, we are very clear that what we're seeing is that the impact of digital is not only restricted just to the digital space. Okay, it moves into the real world as well. So, which is what I said that having done in concentrated influencer campaigns in the east, in West Bengal and Odisha, we found it working even on the market level, right? So we are dialing up our digital. I mean, that's a no-brainer. We are dialing up our digital part of the budget, and yeah, so
Tell
that's
me
the
a
only
little bit
change.
about your tell me a little bit about your digital strategy that you followed. And
So
have you kind of linked it to the influencer marketing
yeah,
with,
no. So
with
it's so
influencers
therefore see,
as
there
well?
is obviously see, till date a lot of money still goes into what I call blackboard advertising even on digital, so YouTube, etc., and all of that. And not much of experimentation is happening on the true nature of what digital offers, which is interactivity. And I don't think there are fantastic campaigns that we have in India that talk of that, or brands use it to drive it. Whereas influencers, on the other hand, offer you that window of interactivity, albeit through via medium, but it allows you a window of interactivity with your consumers. So even though it is with the filter and the lens of the influencer, 90 percent of could be about the fantastic dress that he or she is wearing, about how good he or she is looking, but still they are interacting. So therefore, the 5% of the comments could be about your brand. So therefore, what we've seen is that social media really sort of has helped us push up our noticeability. In fact, so we tried a digital heavy communication for the north, east, and east. And the interesting place where we observed the benefits of that is actually on Flipkart, because on Flipkart you have access to brand searches on the channel. So if you are a major partner, you know what's your status of brands, where do you stand as far as brands in the category is concerned, and we saw a huge boost during the period of the campaign. So therefore, in the sense that it could impact numbers nationally. The numbers from East itself could impact the ranking of the brand nationally. So therefore, I mean, but like with anything to do with digital, it is very transient. So therefore, it ran, let's say, I mean, it continued for 3 weeks after the campaign stopped. But nevertheless, what we saw was a direct impact in terms of brand preferences, scores that went up. And we know that digital, and it was actually perhaps one of the cheapest influencer campaigns that we ran, because they are much cheaper in Odisha and West Bengal, but the impact compared to that was quite, let's say, big sized. So we will continue doing that. We will continue using influencers, and we will perhaps get better at it. We will perhaps
Are
get
these
better.
all campaigns response driven campaigns that you do? Do you backlink it to some kind of an ROI that you kind
No,
of
so we do it. Yes, we. There's no campaign that I would run on e-commerce which
without it?
doesn't have an opportunity to buy, but it is not ROI driven. So there are PLAs that we run which are obviously ROI driven. That's their business. But the reason why we build an opportunity to buy is because that's again internet. Why should you not have an opportunity to buy even if it's an ad on YouTube or a post on what do you call? Why should you not have an opportunity to buy? So there is an opportunity to buy, yes, but it is not ROI driven. So it's only our PLA campaigns that are ROI driven. Rest all activities are not ROI driven. But we measure traffic. We've seen traffic. We measure to see how efficacious it is. But no, that's not the lens that we measure it on. So we know which platforms. So we know whether, does Instagram give you a better traffic to Flipkart and Amazon. We know whether what do you call, Facebook does, or we know which influencer does. But that's not the reason why we choose them.
Suparna, can you touch upon your digital strategy and some influencer marketing campaigns that you may have done?
Since the last one and a half, 2 years, we have started actually, I'll go back a little. While TV remains the mainline medium for us, we have actually taken a large amount of our outdoor budget, and put it into radio and digital. The digital is actually divided into various, we do a social media campaign, but we, like Shashank said, that we do not do any campaign which does not have a sales register ringing. So everything is driven towards, and that's been our new learning, everything is driven towards sales. It's no point talking about a paratha or a chili cheese kebab if you cannot, if there are two things that digital that we push through digital. One is to showcase the product and the usability of it, and the other thing is to let the consumer know where to buy it. Is it Amazon Fresh? Is it on our e-commerce platform, or where all it is available? So it's very important for us to constantly remind consumers on how they can use the product. So demonstration through influencers, through nutrition panelists, through we are now tying up with some kind of chefs like Mamika Magic and those kind of chefs who will be able to, everybody's a cook. This is the one thing that I've discovered, we've all discovered, of course, that during pandemic everybody's become a good cook. Everyone's household has now started giving out, making very fanciful food. So going forward, if that is the case, then you rather make everybody cook with your ingredients at home. That is our aim, and we want to do that digitally. So we are talking to like a lot of chefs, celebrity chefs, and normal, and from there running contests. We are trying to get into contests where every mom, every Bengali mother can then put out Awadhi biryani or whatever fanciful cooking that she can do, and make her look very, make her the very important factor. So actually what the brands what we're doing with our brands through digital is weave a story. We're actually telling a story. We don't know whether we don't know if all the products will be picked up or not, but we are actually connecting by saying that if you want to make kheer, this is the quickest way to do it in 10 minutes instead of our age-old recipes of 20 minutes. This is how you would do it. These are the differentiation in milk. This is how you choose it in order to make the kheer more yummy or tasty. So we are actually, our digital strategy very clearly is to weave product stories, and make it come closer to the consumer, and very clearly for sales. We are very clear that it needs to sell it, the products need to move off the shelf. So these are the two things, and for that we adopt various methods. One of the things that I've been trying to understand really are the podcasts, because this is something which is now a very big thing that has come up, but because podcasts can help you tell a story. I don't know how, where, what, but this is something that is in the periphery for our digital strategy we need to do, because we are already using influencers, we are already doing bloggers, we are doing social media, we are doing e-commerce, we are pushing our products. We've for example, we've just have a huge promotion happening in Srinagar in Uttaranchal and Leh Ladakh. How do you reach people there? I can't have a newspaper ad there. I can't, I don't know which television channel really what people are watching. So we've actually started, we've taken addresses of where all our products are available, and within a certain radius of kilometer, we are addressing a certain kind of women who go out and buy, and on a kind of a retail store which is slightly modern, where my product is available. So we are clearly targeting them, because we know that's the only way it's going to work. Just by doing Facebook and saying Happy Father's Day and all, which is all very good, does not ring my cash register. So this is something which we are very clear about. So our strategy is is to learn the new ways of the digitalization is happening. We don't know everything. Every day is a new discovery. To have to analyze, correct, to have an ROI, but also to push for sales in whichever manner, and to start weaving a story out there. I mean, we would ultimately, food is something which is close to your heart. So you need to weave a story around it to come closer to your consumers. So that's mota on the lines that we are thinking.
Polami, do you also follow similar lines, or is your strategy a bit different than what they do?
Yeah, slightly different. Coming to the first point that you mentioned about media mixes, prior to pandemic, of course, there was television, there's outdoor, there's BTL, and that we were into. There were cinemas that we did, and of course, digital. Post the pandemic, most certainly, cinema has something that we have shifted our money from. Outdoor is something that we're currently not doing. More focus on the digital part of it. Now, coming to the second part of the digital strategy part of it. Now, digital divided into 3 phases, particularly the marketplace through which we sell, and the other is social media. Social media, let me start with that. There's influencer marketing, there is Instagram, there's Facebook and all. Our strategy remains very simple. We use it in 2 ways. We have 3 content strategy for it. One, purely about the products, which definitely has a link and everything that allows you to go and check out where the product is available, go buy. The other part is an engagement content where you actually engage with your existing consumers who are already a part of your Instagram page. Do contest, do giveaways, which actually help you keep in touch and engage with your consumer. The third is contextual and topical. So, for example, yes, the Father's Day, the Mother's Day, the Pride's Day, the World's Day, our take on it. So that's how we actually have 3 bucket of content that we follow for our social media to engage, to have a topical moment, and the rest of it is typically about our products. Now, of course, there's YouTube where you put out your commercials, and all of this is linked to it. The second important part is actually advertising within the marketplaces, because what I feel, and whether it is a general trade, whether it is e-commerce, as marketers, the ROI is something which is slightly more complicated than what we think. I putting an ad on TV, I putting an ad or a post on Instagram, I making a jingle on radio, does not ensure that my product moves out of the shelf. There are a lot many things that actually make a consumer buy. For example, if you go by the general trade, the point of purchase is extremely important. Similarly, the brand recall, okay, how long you have been speaking, the trust that a brand has been existing, especially for food, personal care industry. I think consistency of your product and how long you have been available and the trust factor that you build with your consumer over the years also influences the decision, the purchase decision, the taking out of the money and buying the product. So similar way, while you are selling in this pandemic period when digital marketing has taken up a big way, and marketplaces like the Amazons on the Flipkart, advertising inside those marketplaces is very important because of 2 reasons what we feel. Even if I sell, because I do not sell from my website, we sell through marketplaces. So imagine yourself as a consumer. When you see something on Instagram that you like, right? Now, the traffic is diverted towards the marketplace when you click on the link. Now, when you go there, if you see when you purchase, you will also get 4 or 5 other options. And you will check out those are new, and your traffic is not necessarily converted into a purchase. So therefore, one of the reasons why everybody goes into an initial marketplace is because we have to believe that Amazons and Flipkarts of the world, through their marketing and through their set of database, they already have an existing set of consumers. I spend my money, take the consumer to Amazon or Flipkart, goes to that link, before he buys out, sees 3 other ads, flips from that, and then buys a different product. That is the fallout ratios that we often see. So therefore, what we do is we do a lot of in a lot of advertising in the marketplaces as well. Within the marketplace, we spend a large part of our money in the Amazons of the world, through the display, through the clicks. They have a lot of options. So that's a large chunk we do because that affects my sales directly. The other part of social media and digital space is also, you guys would agree that sometimes telling a brand story or engaging with the consumer in the mass medias like television becomes very expensive as well. So the brand has a voice and you want to consistently exist in the mind of your consumers year on year. You have to have a narrative, you have to have a language, and you want to say something to the world. So I think digital also helps me do that. So we always have certain brand campaigns where we want to reach out to a wider or a selective audiences. So I'll give you a simple example. We are a brand which is targeted mainly towards a woman consumer, and we do take up, and the essence of brand or the philosophy of brand is beautiful by nature, and we have a story that the brand has been saying for the last 5 years. We have done that on television, so all our ads are on a similar line, but sometimes it is beyond ads. And at present, especially when you want to talk to your consumers in a different thing, in a longer format, you want to engage with them, I think we also utilize digital social media uh, in that space as well. So that's the overall strategy. There is a brand part, brand storytelling that happens. And in the social media circuit, we have three different buckets. One, talk about our products, go search for it and buy them over here. The other is keep a constant engagement, which is all the activities and the contest and the giveaways. The third is the topical, all the topics that happens in an entire year, and what is the voice that we want to have. Those are the topical posts. And the fourth part is the brand voice and the brand messaging that we want to extend to the world. So that's broadly how we look at it.
I come to the last question of the day. Nothing finishes from East if we don't talk about Durga Puja, the festivities, right? So, what are your expectations, Jay, from the festive season this year, especially in the East market?
Yes, because first of all, as I said, East is not only about West Bengal, and therefore not about Durga Puja. Because when you look at Northeast, there are various festivals which happen there, and each state has its own festival. So there are various things playing out there. The festive definitely is very important. Last year also, I think it helped spike the entire ADEX. So till around August, everything was going very slow, and then come September, things started ramping up till April this year. So obviously, lots of hopes are sort of latched on that. There are categories again like auto and consumer durables where probably 60% of the sales happen during these periods. So it's sort of important for them. Again, FMCGs and all, it is not as high as that, but still there is a spike which happens during festivals. So absolutely, I'm like pretty optimistic about that things are getting better, and it'll really spike up during the festive season.
Manas?
So, Vijaya, actually echo Jay. I think overall we are all very optimistic as an industry. Also, to be honest, there seems to be some speed in the whole vaccination process. So that also sort of gives us another sort of, how do I put it? Another reason to be optimistic that things will open up faster. And hopefully we will see a good festive this year as well.
Right. Okay. Follow me, Suparna, Shashank. My question is, do you expect a bigger revival in consumer spends and ad spends from your end? What is the consumer sentiment? How are you kind of envisaging in the months to come? Suparna, would you like to go first? Shashank, I would want you to respond to that, I think.
So it's not just the issue of mood change. Okay, we saw that mood change happen last year. This pandemic has been very, very tragic given the losses that have happened. So, and given the sensitivities of celebrations that happen in houses, in first year, first 6 months, etc. There is at least 1 crore of them. The number is not small. There are 1 crore households who have lost somebody. So there is that dampener that is definitely there. But so our job is to be prepared in case it opens. Okay, as we speak, Orissa is still under shutdown, weekend shutdown. Okay, it continues to be on weekend shutdown. So and they are allowed 500 meters mobility, right? So, but yes, we are prepared. But how will it open? When will it open? That's a matter that I don't think anybody can be sort of wanting to take a guess, and it will be a guess. It a logic will. I mean, because there are the indicators are that, as I said, people have really lost somebody close. So therefore, you can at least move that part of the audience out of a consumer occasion like a puja or a um, which is all about celebrating. Okay, uh, some of the I mean, last year Bhai Dooj and Raksha Bandhan were big actually, because that was one. See, Bhai Dooj is a different kind of a relationship. It's about reassuring. So therefore, we saw a lot of movement during that, because it's a celebration of a relationship rather than celebration of happiness in life. So we anticipate maybe perhaps little more minor moments like this, which will get in spikes. But yeah, in a large scale, um, not extremely optimistic, but we are prepared. And then I would like to be obviously pleasantly surprised by any change. Though we do know there are a lot of brands who have actually pedaled very hard during the pandemic. And I mean, for example, what we do definitely know is there are at least 5 lifestyle brands wanting to launch fragrance perfumes in August. That is much more than the number of, I mean, that is equal to the total number of perfume brands that exist in the country, right? So there are those news. I mean, there are those events that are happening. We know that, but as I said, it's just too uncertainty. Is it in? Will the third wave come? Will it come in October? Will it come in December? Will it come? Not come? I mean, so, and like for example, we were about to shoot a film in Meghalaya. The government decided to extend the lockdown by 2 weeks. So you are, and 2 weeks is 2 weeks is 2 weeks lesser time for puja or any of those festivities. So to me, it's not puja, but it is a whole period of festivity. It's Diwali in parts. It is. I mean, we are almost what? Do you think Mandir idols of Ganpati would have happened in Bombay as of now? Right? I'm not sure. And it is August that you're looking at that. So there is a big impact, not only just of the pandemic, but the nature of the pandemic that was there in the second wave. So yes, some categories will go up. I mean, I think consumption overall will go up, but some segments will follow much later. Sub-segments will. And I think we will be one of those segments. But as I said, we are prepared. We've got some plans that are, as I said, the last 2 months we spent in planning. So we are much better prepared. But as I said, am I running to start planning discussions with media houses as of this moment? No, because I don't know when to open it. Because of course we can meet, discuss, plan, but do I have a commitment to make? I don't have a commitment to make as of now. So that's there. But we are, yes, optimistic, as I say. We are hopeful it will come back, whether it is this puja or next puja or Christmas, we don't know.
Pranav, what's your plan of action? How are you guys envisaging the festive season?
So puja is very big for us because for Metro as a brand, Metro Dairy as a brand, it's very, very large. It's in fact 70% of our spend, and that's where we launch our new products and new flavors, do a lot of contests. This year, we know there's not going to be, there's nothing, there's not going to be the usual pandal hopping, whatever little we saw last year. I think this year we are expecting from various, puja to be more within family, getting to know your own. It will be playing safe. It will be getting to know your neighbors, keeping it to the para zone. So we don't. Entertainment, of course, will be very high. Everyone's going to be watching. Television is going to be very, very key in this, because you're going to actually see the puja through the eyes of the through television and various various other medium, digital medium. So we don't, I don't know right now whether we'll get to know in August what we are planning to do, what we're going to do. Normally we always sponsor the puja pandals. We do a lot of contests around certain very large pujas. But this year, so far, we're going to wait and watch till August. This is not a great time for any corporate or any large brand to also encourage great gatherings, go out, enjoy. That's not the mood right now. So we don't want to talk about that either. I mean, to go out and prepare, go and get. So we are not looking at making a new film. We are not creating new advertisements, things like that. But so August, we should know where we stand, because we don't want to be against the sentiment of this entire disease, the way it has cropped out. It actually it won't be great for anybody to do that. The second thing which we are noticing, and we've been doing a lot of dipstick studies and researches, is that while people are feeling the fear, they're also very optimistic about doing something within Bengal. So for example, travel is definitely on the cards. Can I take my car and go off to Mandarmani or to Darjeeling? These are things that a Bengali has never really talked about. They love travel, but they wouldn't drive down, or they wouldn't take that short holiday in a Raichak, So all, what I see a lot of these things, I mean, you hear of Delhiites, you have Bombayites who will always, go off to Alibags or Goas and things like that, places like that. But, a Calcuttan also today is actually talking that, which is a very interesting thing, which means that, of course, there is a lot of fear, remorse, but, there is a lot of optimism. Yet there's a lot of optimism. Smaller groups, let's keep the enjoyment within that. Let's travel to nearby places where we can, where we won't get stuck. So this is what we are now seeing around. How would we react to it? What would we do is something that has not been completely firmed up. We'll get to know by August. But we don't want to do anything which is extremely gung-ho, which will be against the sentiment of the country. That's not something we would.
Olami, do you echo Sparna's sentiment, or are you more optimistic? Are you looking at new brand launches?
No, it's not that. The point is we've always remained, for FMCG, it has never been like, as Jai said, it's not like a huge spike, but of course there is spike. Pre-Pujo has always been a spike for us, but during Pujo has been a very cluttered environment. We've always avoided that phase. Having said that, last observations that that most of us, a lot of them have been speaking also, we have seen that Durga Puja and Ganpati are more like a social festival, it's more like that. But whereas the other ones, the ones like Bhai Dooj and all, are more about relationships and very closed. So those are the ones people have been setting. And what we have been doing is instead of going a turnaround in the marketing strategy, we have also started investing a lot on the offerings that we do. Like, for example, the gifting offerings and all that, the exchange of gifts, we played a part there where the product moves faster. Like there are 2-3 ways our personal care industry works. Like pre-puja, you want to deck up, and during puja, you want to use this on your skin. You want your skin to glow and that. So pre-puja has been there, and I think that still, to an extent, will be there. But of course, there is a meltdown in the sentiments as largely so. During puja, we have never been into the clutter of actually sponsoring pujas and all too much, because we're not a brand, we are a personal care brand. So that's why pre-pujo is very important. But we are encashing on the smaller sentiments. The social gatherings are something that has been avoided. For a large thing, people will go out, but I don't see a major shift. We'll keep doing optimistic. Yes, we have to be optimistic. There's no other way out of it. To live and sit on your webinar itself, you have to be optimistic. Otherwise, all of us will be cribbing right now. We're all optimistic. Media will be there. We are going to consume media. We'll be up on media because we don't want to lose out from the brand mind space, my consumers. We've been doing stuff especially to keep the spirit of the brand and thing alive. And we experiment a lot. We've seen the smaller festives is becoming more important because people are not able to enjoy the outward movement. So we've played around on our offerings, giftings, the offerings, and that has helped us a lot to keep the business afloat as well. So that's a kind of innovation at that level, if I may tell you. Yeah.
Thank you, panelists. That was a wonderful session. I thoroughly loved engaging with each one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very insightful, great insights that came out of it. It makes us think that we need to do much more engagement with other set of players also from this sector, and need to know this market a lot better than what we have been doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, friends, we'll be launching our book, Trending Now. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our 2021 edition of Trending Now, sponsored by News Nation. As in our previous editions, this year too, Trending Now is an important and relevant compilation of views, insights, and suggestions from our industry leaders, as well as important lessons in how to navigate through crisis times. We are also sharing the link for everyone to check it online. Team, may I request to kindly showcase some of the slides from the book? Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Manaz. Thank you, Polomi, Suparna, and Shushant. Thank you for sparing the time with us. And thank you, everyone, for being with us today evening. Hope you found the discussion insightful and engaging. Do join us for the inaugural edition of ImageX 2021 on 7th of July at 11 a.m. Keep watching AdGalley for more details. Stay safe. Take care. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.